Before Kim Fields wore roller skates on The Facts of Life, she was already 8 years old in this forgotten sitcom where a legally dead gambler battles his mother-in-law, whose name literally means killer. From a $1 million contract curse to Norman Lear's shocking cancellation deal, this show's bizarre behind-the-scenes secrets reveal why television history forgot it existed. Fact 1. Norman Lear traded it for good times. Most television shows get canceled because of low ratings or behind-the-scenes drama. But Baby I'm Back met its end for one of the strangest reasons in TV history. Creator Lila Garrett later revealed that the show was actually doing decently in the ratings when CBS suddenly pulled the plug after just 13 episodes. The real reason had nothing to do with the show's performance and everything to do with a backroom deal involving one of television's most powerful producers, Norman Lear. According to Garrett, Norman Lear wanted his hit sitcom Good Times to return for another season on CBS, even though the network had already committed their time slot to Baby I'm Back. Rather than simply negotiating for a different time slot or waiting for the next season, Lear made CBS an offer they couldn't refuse. He promised the network that if they canceled Baby I'm Back and brought Good Times back instead, he would create an entirely different show for them down the line. CBS agreed to the deal, and just like that, Demond Wilson's sitcom became a literal bargaining chip in Hollywood politics. The situation was particularly frustrating because Baby I'm Back wasn't failing. Denise Nicholas, who played the female lead Olivia Ellis, told Jet magazine in the summer of 1978 that she was genuinely surprised by the cancellation given their decent ratings. The show never got a fair chance to build an audience or find its footing because it was sacrificed for Norman Lear's other interests. In an industry where shows usually live or die by their Nielsen numbers, Baby I'm Back proved that sometimes success isn't enough when powerful producers start making deals behind closed doors. Fact 2. Demond Wilson's $1 million consolation prize. When Red Fox walked away from Sanford & Son in 1977, Demond Wilson found himself without a job, but not without options. CBS immediately swooped in and offered Wilson a $1 million contract to star in Baby I'm Back, which would be worth approximately $5 million in today's money. This massive payday made Wilson one of the highest-paid actors on television at the time, and it all came from a show that would only last 13 episodes. The generous contract was CBS's way of capitalizing on Wilson's fame from Sanford & Son, where he had spent 6 seasons playing Lamont Sanford opposite Red Fox's Fred Sanford. When Fox accepted an offer from ABC to host a variety show called the Red Fox Comedy Hour, NBC tried to keep Sanford & Son going with Wilson as the soul lead, but when the network refused to give him a raise, Wilson left as well. CBS saw an opportunity and offered him a fortune to jump networks and headline their new sitcom. Years later, Wilson addressed the situation in interviews and in his memoir, Second Banana, where he talked about his relationship with Fox. He admitted that he had no animosity toward Fox for quitting Sanford & Son because the $1 million contract at CBS softened any hurt feelings he might have had. What did bother Wilson was that Fox never came to him directly about his decision to leave the show. Instead, Wilson found out about it in a hallway at NBC from a newscaster, which felt like a personal betrayal, even though the financial outcome worked in his favor. Text 3. The show addressed abandoned black fathers. Baby I'm Back wasn't just another sitcom about family dysfunction and comedic misunderstandings. Creator Lila Garrett had a much deeper purpose in mind when she developed the show, specifically designing it to tackle one of the most painful social issues affecting black communities in the 1970s. According to the book Funny You Should Ask, Oral Histories of Classic Sitcom Storytellers by Scott Llewellyn, Garrett created the series to address the reality that many black men were abandoning their families because they couldn't find jobs to support them. During this era, unemployment rates for black men were significantly higher than the national average, and the economic pressure led many fathers to walk away from their families out of shame and desperation. Garrett wanted to tell a story about what could happen if one of these men actually got his life together and tried to come home. The premise centered on Raymond Ellis, a compulsive gambler who had abandoned his wife Olivia and their 2 children 7 years earlier, leaving them behind in Washington, D.C. while he fled to California. The show's title itself was a deliberate reflection of this redemption narrative. Ray came back to his family after finally finding work and getting his act together, which is exactly what the title "Baby, I'm Back" represented. It was his way of saying he had returned and wanted another chance. The show portrayed Olivia as a successful woman with a great government job at the Pentagon, living in a nice apartment, which flipped the traditional sitcom formula by showing that the family had actually thrived without him, making his journey to prove himself worthy of their forgiveness even more complicated and meaningful. Fact 4. Kim Fields was only 8 years old. Long before Kim Fields became a household name, as Tootie on The Facts of Life, she was just 8 years old when she landed the role of Angie Ellis on Baby, I'm Back. This was her first major television role, and it gave her valuable experience working on a professional sitcom set, even though the show only lasted 13 episodes. Fields was born in May of 1969, which means she was filming the series when most kids her age were still in elementary school learning their multiplication tables. Kim came from a show business family, as her mother, Chip Fields, was also an actress and director, which meant she had been around television sets and film productions her entire young life. Before Baby, I'm Back, she had already appeared in what would become one of her most memorable early gigs, a television commercial for Mrs. Butterworth syrup when she was just 7 years old. That commercial gave her a taste of being in front of the camera and helped prepare her for the demands of working on a weekly sitcom. Playing Angie Ellis on Baby, I'm Back allowed Fields to develop her comedic timing and learn how to hold her own alongside more experienced actors like DeMond Wilson, Denise Nicholas, and Helen Martin. The show only ran from January to April of 1978, but it was enough to catch the attention of casting directors who were looking for talented young performers. Just 1 year later, in 1979, Fields would audition for and win the role of Dorothy Tootie Ramsey on The Facts of Life, which would run for 9 seasons and make her a genuine television star. Fact 5. Helen Martin's drunk chicken scene. One of the most bizarrely memorable moments from Baby, I'm Back came from a physical comedy scene that viewers who watched the show still remember decades later. Helen Martin, who played the sharp-tongued mother-in-law Luzelle Carter, performed a scene where her character accidentally got drunk on cooking cherry while trying to prepare a chicken dinner. For those unfamiliar with cooking cherry, it's a flavoring extract that contains a surprisingly high amount of alcohol, and apparently Luzelle sampled a bit too much of it while working in the kitchen. The scene unfolded in 2 hilarious parts that showcased Martin's skills as a physical comedian. First, after drinking the cooking cherry, she would stagger out of the kitchen into the living room clearly intoxicated, stumbling around in front of the other characters who had to react to her unexpected drunken state. Then, in what became the truly unforgettable moment, Martin would go back into the kitchen where she manipulated the plucked raw chicken like a puppet, making it dance a little 2-step across the counter before having it take a dramatic dive into a mixing bowl. This kind of absurd physical comedy was unusual for sitcoms of the era, which typically relied more on verbal jokes and family conflict for their humor. Martin's willingness to commit fully to the ridiculous premise and her talent for physical performance made the scene work in a way that could have easily fallen flat with a less skilled actress. The drunk chicken scene became one of those standout moments that fans of the show would reference years later, proving that sometimes the weirdest ideas can create the most lasting impressions in television comedy. Fact 6. The character name meant killer. The show made it crystal clear from the very first episode that Ray Ellis and his mother-in-law Luzelle Carter were not going to get along. During the opening credits of Baby, I'm Back, DeMond Wilson's character, Ray would narrate his introduction to the main cast members, and when it came time to introduce Luzelle, he had some very pointed things to say. Ray would explain that his mother-in-law's name, Luzelle, was French for killer, immediately establishing her as the antagonist in his quest to win back his family. The introduction didn't stop there. because Ray would go on to deliver an even harsher line about his mother-in-law that set the tone for their relationship throughout the series. He would tell viewers that the day Luzelle moved into the apartment, the rats moved next door, painting a picture of a woman so intimidating and unpleasant that even the vermin wanted nothing to do with her. This kind of harsh mother-in-law humor was a staple of sitcoms in the 1970s, but Baby I'm Back took it to another level by making it part of the actual opening credits that played every single week. The running joke served multiple purposes for the show's structure and comedy. It established the central conflict between Ray and Luzelle right from the start, letting audiences know that much of the show's humor would come from their battles. It also gave context for why Ray's return home after 7 years wouldn't be easy, since he not only had to win back his wife, Olivia, but also deal with a mother-in-law who clearly despised him and had probably been quite happy living in the apartment without him there. Fact 7. Helen Martin recreated Aunt Esther. When the producers of Baby I'm Back were casting the role of Luzelle Carter, the sharp-tongued mother-in-law who would serve as DeMond Wilson's main antagonist, they made a very deliberate choice in hiring Helen Martin. Martin was specifically brought in to recreate the dynamic that Wilson had experienced on Sanford & Son with actress LaWanda Page, who played the memorable character Aunt Esther. On that show, Aunt Esther was Fred Sanford's sister-in-law and his constant verbal sparring partner, and the producers wanted to capture that same energy for Baby I'm Back. Helen Martin understood the assignment and approached the role of Luzelle as an intentional callback to the Aunt Esther character. She played Luzelle as a strong-willed, no-nonsense woman who wasn't afraid to tell Ray Ellis exactly what she thought of him, serving as the perfect foil for Wilson's character, just like LaWanda Page had been on Sanford & Son. The verbal battles between Wilson and Martin became one of the highlights of the show, with Martin delivering insults and put-downs with the same kind of religious fervor and comedic timing that Page had brought to Aunt Esther. This casting decision was part of a larger strategy to make Wilson feel comfortable in his new sitcom by surrounding him with familiar dynamics, even if the specific characters and situations were different. Audiences who had loved watching Wilson trade barbs with LaWanda Page on Sanford & Son would hopefully enjoy seeing him do the same thing with Helen Martin on Baby I'm Back. Martin would later become even more famous for playing Pearl Shea on the sitcom 227, which ran from 1985 to 1990. Fact 8. The pilot was filmed before the series. The production timeline for Baby I'm Back followed an unusual path that resulted in one of the stranger quirks of the show's brief existence. The pilot episode was videotaped in September of 1977, several months before CBS officially picked it up as a mid-season replacement for their 1977 to 1978 television season. Once the network gave the show a green light, full production on the remaining episodes began in November of 1977 at the CBS Studio Center lot in Los Angeles. What made this situation particularly odd was how CBS decided to handle the broadcast order once the show finally premiered in January of 1978. Instead of airing the pilot episode first, like most television series do, the network chose to hold it back and air it as the 9th episode in the broadcast schedule. This meant that viewers who tuned in for the series premiere on January 30th, 1978, were actually watching an episode called Living Proof that had been produced after the pilot, while the original pilot episode wouldn't air until late March. The decision to air episodes out of production order wasn't completely unheard of in television, as networks sometimes shuffled episodes around if they felt a different episode would make a stronger premiere or if production delays created scheduling conflicts. However, it was still unusual to hold back the pilot for so long, especially since pilot episodes are typically designed to introduce the characters and premise in a way that later episodes assume viewers already understand. This odd choice may have contributed to some confusion for viewers trying to follow the show's storyline and character development. Fact 9. Denise Nicholas was a hot commodity. When Baby I'm Back was being cast in 1977, Denise Nicholas was one of the most sought-after black actresses in television. She had just finished 5 seasons playing guidance counselor Liz McIntyre on the groundbreaking ABC drama Room 222, which ran from 1969 to 1974. During her time on that show, Nicholas received 3 consecutive Golden Globe nominations for Best Actress in a Drama TV Series in 1970, 1971, and 1972, establishing her as a serious dramatic actress with proven audience appeal. Room 222 was one of the first television series to tackle serious social and political issues within a high school setting, and Nicholas's character was portrayed as an intelligent, compassionate professional who helped students navigate difficult situations. The show had been critically acclaimed and commercially successful, which meant that when it ended, Nicholas had her pick of potential projects. Landing an actress of her caliber was a major coup for Baby I'm Back, especially since the show was trying to establish itself as more than just another sitcom. Creator Lila Garrett has spoken about the casting process and revealed that she immediately saw something special when Nicholas and Demond Wilson read together during auditions. The chemistry between the two actors was undeniable, with both performers bringing a natural energy and rapport that convinced Garrett they could carry the show as a romantic duo trying to reconnect after years apart. Having both Wilson fresh off Sanford and Son and Nicholas coming from Room 222 gave Baby I'm Back a level of star power that most new sitcoms could only dream of having. Fact 10. Only 13 episodes in 3 months. Baby I'm Back had one of the shortest runs in television history for a show that actually made it to air on a major network. The series premiered on CBS on January 30th, 1978, and aired its final episode on April 24th of that same year, giving it a total lifespan of barely 3 months on television. During that brief window, only 13 episodes were produced and broadcast, which meant the show averaged just over 1 episode per week with no breaks or hiatuses. This extremely compressed schedule meant that Baby I'm Back never had any real opportunity to find its audience or build the kind of loyal following that allows sitcoms to develop and improve over time. Most successful television shows need at least a full season or 2 to work out their creative kinks, figure out which character dynamics work best, and give viewers enough time to discover the show and tell their friends about it. Baby I'm Back got none of that breathing room, going from premiere to cancellation in the span of time it takes most shows to complete their first half season. The show also never had a chance to evolve beyond its initial premise of Ray trying to win back his estranged wife, Olivia, while dealing with his hostile mother-in-law and reconnecting with his children. There was no time for the characters to grow or for the writers to explore different storylines and comedic directions. The series ended without any kind of proper finale or resolution, simply disappearing from the CBS schedule after that 13th episode aired in late April, leaving viewers who had been following along with no closure whatsoever about whether Ray would ever successfully reconcile with his family. Fact 11. Denise Nicholas was shocked by cancellation. The cast and crew of Baby I'm Back were caught completely off guard when CBS pulled the plug on the show after just 13 episodes. Denise Nicholas, who played the female lead, Olivia Ellis, gave an interview to Jet magazine in the summer of 1978, where she expressed her genuine confusion about the network's decision. Nicholas told the magazine that she was surprised at the cancellation of the series, despite the fact that it had been pulling in decent ratings, making it clear that she and the rest of the production team had expected the show to continue into at least a second season. Nicholas had every reason to be confused by the cancellation because, by all normal television standards, Baby I'm Back was doing well enough to survive. The show wasn't a runaway hit that dominated the ratings, but it was performing adequately for a mid-season replacement sitcom in its first year on the air. Under typical circumstances, a show with decent ratings and 2 big stars like Nicholas and Demond Wilson would have been given more time to find its footing and build a larger audience, especially since CBS had invested a $1 million contract in Wilson to make the show happen in the first place. What Nicholas didn't fully understand at the time was that the show's ratings were essentially irrelevant to the decision to cancel it. The cancellation had nothing to do with the show's performance or potential, and everything to do with Norman Lear's behind-the-scenes deal with CBS to bring back good times. Baby, I'm Back became collateral damage in a piece of television business negotiation that had already been decided before anyone bothered to check whether the show deserved to stay on the air. Fact 12. The show featured feminist debates. Baby, I'm Back wasn't afraid to tackle gender politics and feminist ideas, which was fairly progressive for a sitcom in 1978. The show included what viewers at the time called feminist periods, where the characters would engage in debates about gender roles and equality that went beyond the typical sitcom fare of the era. These moments were particularly memorable because they featured Denise Nicholas making intelligent, thoughtful arguments about women's rights while maintaining the show's comedic tone. One exchange that stuck with viewers involved a debate between Ray and Olivia about how language itself reflects gender inequality. Ray made the argument that men are always listed before women in common phrases, rattling off examples like men and women, boys and girls, and his and hers to prove his point. Olivia immediately countered by pointing out the obvious exception to his rule, responding with ladies and gentlemen, which completely undermined his entire argument. She then pushed the conversation even further by asking Ray why there was never a king bee, pointing out that in nature, the queen bee is the one in charge, while the male bees serve supportive roles. These kinds of exchanges were unusual for 1970s sitcoms, which typically avoided serious discussions about gender equality or presented feminist ideas as the punchline of jokes rather than legitimate viewpoints. The fact that Baby, I'm Back gave Olivia the intelligence and agency to win these verbal sparring matches made the show stand out. And having an actress with the presence and credibility of Denise Nicholas delivering these lines made them feel authentic rather than preachy or forced into the storyline for political reasons. Fact 13. Bet resurrected it. In the 1980s, after Baby, I'm Back finished its brief run on CBS in April of 1978, the show completely disappeared from television screens for several years. Most viewers who had watched the show during its original 3-month run assumed it was gone forever, as was often the case with failed sitcoms that only lasted one season. However, the show got an unexpected second life nearly a decade later when Black Entertainment Television, better known as BET, decided to air all 13 episodes in syndication during the mid to late 1980s. BET's decision to resurrect Baby, I'm Back made sense for several reasons. The cable network was still relatively new, having launched in 1980, and was constantly looking for programming that would appeal to its target audience of Black viewers. A sitcom starring Demond Wilson and Denise Nicholas with an all-Black cast fit perfectly into BET's programming strategy, and the fact that only 13 episodes existed meant the network could easily cycle through the entire series and repeat it multiple times without worrying about managing a huge library of content. The show aired on BET for several years, giving a whole new generation of viewers the chance to discover it, and allowing people who had watched it during its original CBS run to see it again. The last known broadcast of Baby, I'm Back on BET occurred in 1991, after which the show once again vanished from television completely. For the next 23 years, Baby, I'm Back existed only in the memories of people who had seen it during either its original CBS run or its BET syndication period, with no way for new audiences to access the episodes. Fact 14. YouTube saved it from obscurity. Baby, I'm Back was essentially a lost piece of television history for over 2 decades until a YouTube channel called Mentronic's Retro TV Store came to the rescue in 2014. The channel uploaded all 13 episodes of the show to YouTube, making them freely available to anyone with an internet connection for the first time since the show had last aired on BET back in 1991. This upload single-handedly saved the show from complete obscurity and became the primary way that modern audiences could discover and watch this forgotten sitcom. The importance of this YouTube upload cannot be overstated because Baby, I'm Back had never been released on DVD, VHS, or any home video format, and it was not available on any streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon Prime. Without the Mantronix Retro TV Store channel making the episodes available online, the show would have remained inaccessible to anyone who didn't happen to have recorded the episodes on VHS during either the original CBS broadcasts in 1978 or the BET reruns in the 1980s and early 90s. The YouTube uploads allowed television historians, nostalgia enthusiasts, and fans of the cast members to finally watch or revisit the show after decades of it being completely unavailable. People who had heard about the show but never seen it could now experience it for themselves. And fans of Demond Wilson, Denise Nicholas, Helen Martin, or young Kim Fields could add Baby I'm Back to their understanding of these performers' careers. The uploads also preserved the show for future generations who might want to study 1970s sitcoms or black television history. Fact 15. 2 future sitcom legends started. Here, looking back at the cast of Baby I'm Back, it's remarkable to realize that the show featured 2 actresses who would go on to become beloved sitcom stars in their own right, even though this particular series only lasted 13 episodes. Helen Martin, who played the sharp-tongued mother-in-law, Luzelle Carter, would become a household name 7 years later when she was cast as Pearl Shea on the NBC sitcom 227, which ran from 1985 to 1990. Martin's character on 227 was another sassy, outspoken older woman who wasn't afraid to speak her mind, building on the same type of comedy she had developed while working on Baby I'm Back. Kim Fields had an even more impressive trajectory after Baby I'm Back ended. Just 1 year after playing 8-year-old Angie Ellis on the short-lived sitcom, Fields was cast as Dorothy Tootie Ramsey on The Facts of Life, which premiered in 1979 and ran for 9 seasons until 1988. That role made her a genuine television star and turned her catchphrase, "We're in trouble," into a piece of pop culture history. Fields wasn't done with sitcom success after The Facts of Life ended, as she went on to star as Regine Hunter on Living Single, which ran on Fox from 1993 to 1998 and became one of the most popular black sitcoms of the 1990s. For both Martin and Fields, Baby I'm Back served as a valuable stepping stone that gave them experience and exposure, even though the show itself failed to find an audience. The brief series became an interesting footnote in both of their careers, a forgotten early credit that very few people remember.